we doing, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and this is going to be a quick video on settings. And the reason I'm making this video is because I'm getting a lot of DMs about this specific question in general, so I'm making a video as a kind of response to that. Now, if you're here to watch this video just to see what the settings are, there's going to be a little timestamp above my head to take you guys to where you need to go. And before I get into my settings, the couple of things I just want to quickly discuss before going into this video. So for the first thing is I'll be making my Ninja Odyssey series probably on Wednesday, Thursday. That is the last day of my exams. Everything will be done then, and I'll collaborate my footage and make that video. It does take me a long time to do because I do have to go through a lot of raw footage to find the bits and bobs that is interesting to compress down to a 10-minute video. I think it's probably going to be more PvE orientated rather than PvP, because most of my PvP that I've done that's been any good, I've kind of just posted the whole thing on YouTube. And honestly, I haven't been PvPing too much or playing Black Desert because obviously my exams. But the time I've had in the game, I've really spent in the PvE section. So I've got a nice little update of stuff that I can put in there. And I've also got the footage available to make a guide on stacks for accessories. So that would probably coming out end of this week, early next week. And that's basically what stacks you need to get from Pride, Duro, Try, and Tet, and how to make a 100 stack as quickly-ish, a combination of speed and efficiency. So you can get it a bit cheaper, but it will take you longer, or you can go for the method that I've done, which shortens the amount of time it takes to get that 100 stack and still keeps it relatively cheap. And a couple days after that video comes out, probably within 3-4 days, there will be a video on how I upgrade boss gear. Hopefully there will be a video on that. I did do a cleanse of my PC of a lot of footage because my PC storage is getting very full. I've got a feeling I might have deleted the videos where I was upgrading my boss gear. So if I can't show actual examples of me doing it, I'll just go through the theory and throw some pictures up in PowerPoint to direct you guys on what I'm trying to say. And the final thing I'm working on for the near future would be a video for the developers that I'm actually currently getting the data in as we speak, and I will be over the course of the next week or two. And that video is going to be specifically tailored towards Histria. I've done one of these before a few months back after they made their initial changes to the mobs. 40% reduction, so it's going to be very, very similar to that, but now in light of having some time with all the changes that they've made since then as well. I wanted to make this video a lot sooner, but I wasn't able to, and that was mainly due to the fact that I'd switched classes. I had a lot to learn about this class. There's a lot of PvE buffs coming in. It wasn't the right time to evaluate all the rooms. Now that everything's stabilized, I know my class very well, and on top of that, we've had all the PvE buffs that we're going to get for the foreseeable future. So everything's more of an even playing field now. So now I feel like it's a good time for me to get the data and make that video. But we are finally going to get into the settings. So if you skip to the timestamp, welcome back. And right before we go into the game settings, we're going to start with a few general things first. If you look at my chat on the left hand side, I like to keep it a reduced chat menu. So I'll press LTY. Right now I've taken it back to normal. This is what it looks like on default. And then if you open your chat menu and you press LTY, it changes it to this shortened version here, and if you press it again, it goes into the long version. So that's how I do my chat. And PvE stuff on my ring menu, so LT left on the D-pad, this is my PvE ring menu. So I've got my campsite, my ferry, my market maid on here, and I've got toggle PvP on here as well. I do have my rage absorption here too. And finally, I've got my 3 food buffs that I rotate. Surrender Your Meal is my PvE food buff. This is not a food buff I'll be rotating in PvP. It would be the Valencia meal in its place. And when I'm grinding, I also use LT down as my ring menu for elixirs. And this will be one of my skills. So when I finish grinding, I'll take the elixirs off, and this will be translating back to an important skill for my class. And now for large scale. So one of the things I do is I take one of my D-pads and I change it into ping. For me personally, it's the guild ping that I'm using because I do help out with the shot calling large scale. If you're not someone that's vocal in the chats, in the comms, and giving information to the people that need it. You're more into your smaller groups. You can probably use, instead of the ping for the guild, the ping for your party. So that way you can communicate with your party where you are. You can ping on yourself if you need help without having to talk. And that way your party knows that you need help and then come to your location. So definitely try and find space for this in large scale. And the next very important thing, and one of my LT D-pad inputs, I put a superior whale potion and a tough whale tendon elixir and the perfume of courage. And this is extremely important in large scale, so make sure you've got something assigned to be able to pop your whale potions and elixirs when necessary. And now for the actual Black Desert settings. So if you go to performance setting, character optimization, I've got on, and I've got the unit set at 50. There are quite a lot of times that this resets for me and turns off. I honestly don't feel much of a difference for when it is on and when it's off. So it's not a super important one, but optimally this is the settings that is the setting I normally use. I keep hide other adventurers off. I show attack decisions off. It just takes up a lot of screen space on my screen. I don't like it. I don't need to see back attack, critical damage. I'd rather see what I'm attacking. And there's a new setting here, hide others' outfits. So in specific scenarios, it will hide other adventurers' outfits. For performance sake, I turn this on. I don't normally notice it though. Most people are usually wearing their outfits. And in large scale, there's so much happening. I'm not really looking at other people's outfits, to be honest. But if it helps performance, that's great. I keep it on. And that's all the performance settings. So let's look at the display settings. Display quality, remove other adventurers' effects. I would keep this off. There is arguments to be made that can help you with performance in probably large scale, but I like to see what my opponents are doing. In our next Node War conquest that I'm in, I might try turning this on and just seeing what kind of effects that it has. And down to effects, this is just a gamma. This is honestly dependent on your TV. So mine's at 80. It's a little bit brighter than it should be, but I don't like going too bright. And for the HDR, you definitely want the 4K ultra high definition off if performance is something you prefer. But obviously, if you like things to look good, you can keep it on. But for PvP, especially large scale, I definitely recommend this one to be turned off. And then volume settings, overall volume, I just got 30. Music volume, I turned completely off. I don't need to listen to the music. When I'm relaxing and grinding, I'm listening to a podcast on my own music. And when I'm PvPing, I want to hear the combat. And if there's callouts, I need to hear the callout. So music volume is not something that I deem important. Sound effects, keep it 100. Ambient sound volume, I've kept that at 100. Voice volume, I've kept that at 100. Combat music is also off. And I've toggled the fairy voice off. Now for general settings, under show and hide, I always hide my name. Sometimes when I'm in RBF, I change it to display when attacked so I can just see my score every now and again. Or I'll do sometimes also just keep it on as well, just to see my score. But honestly, I prefer the hide name because when you are PvPing and when you're PvEing, there's just a lot less clutter on your screen and it just looks a lot cleaner. Now, underneath regular circumstances, display others' names, party members' names, and guild members' names I have on. And again, attack decisions in combat, that is turned off just to keep my screen a bit cleaner. A couple of things I do change when I am node warring or conquesting. I turn off my clan members' names, but I keep on my party members' names and others' names. This makes it a lot easier to track enemies because it hides all your player names, and in Conquest, obviously, ghillie suits don't work. So it's really easy to pick your enemies and your friendlies kind of go into the background, but your party members stay pretty visible. So it's a lot easier to track your party members with this function as well. It is pretty good. As a shot caller though, you probably want to keep these on so you can see everyone's names. It's easier to give calls when you can see everyone's names. Alerts, I keep the marketplace item registration on. Enhancement successes off, fails off, guild missions off, and obtain items off. Language, I've just kept international. Miscellaneous, crossplay on. Play with other adventures on the same platform off. I honestly don't really know what that means, but that's just a new setting that I haven't changed. It's at default. Overall camera effects is a really important one. Turn these down to 0. You don't want your camera shaking non-stop. So for the navigation type, I've just changed it to no navigation guide. So it just, again, keeps my screen nice and clean. And again, that's just to remove clutter, but I think the regular ones are line. That's fine. It's up to you what you want to use here. Reject invites off, reject jewels off, reject trade off, rotate minimap off, hide UI when attacked off, auto run on, camera speed 30, guild member login off, hide other adventurers campsite on. Definitely recommend turning this one on. You would have to change that. It's not a default setting. It just, again, clears a lot of clutter on the ground and people can't use the campsites to visually hide behind. And reject friend requests off. Now for the interface settings, I haven't changed anything. My action hotkeys, those are all default. Gamepad interface, controller vibrations off. The camera quick turn, I've kept off. Double tapping it twice is a bit of an annoying thing that I've not mastered. Maybe it's good. If you're good at it, it could be nice to be able to flip that camera very quickly. But I didn't like it, so I kept this off. The inverts, I just keep off. I think most people keep these off, but obviously if you don't, you've already changed it. Horizontal sensitivity is maximum 100, and vertical I've just kept at 30. I don't really need to go up and down too much. It's not that important, so I've kept that sensitivity low, so I've got a bit more control on that one. And adjusting camera rotation while moving is manual. Now for the chat, I've got notices on, rolled on, normal on, party on, guild on, server group on, combat on, team on, system on. Private items I sometimes turn on when I'm trying to keep a track of what I'm doing, but normally it's off. And again, party, I've never really turned this on, but if you want to see what your party members are getting when you're grinding mirror muck, you can turn this on and it'll give you notifications on the bottom left side of your screen if you want to track that. Marketplace on, this is an important one to turn on. If Pearl Shop items hit the marketplace, there will be a little notification on your bottom left chat window of what came up there, what price, to help you try and snipe those items a bit quicker. System workers off and farming off. So those are my BDO settings, and now I'm going to go through my settings in console. The couple of things that I've changed to help with performance and optimization. Now in your Xbox settings, if you go to TV and display options and you go to video modes, I unclicked 4K. I don't want 4K ever being on. I don't want any extra drain on either my TV or my console. I don't want any tearing happening. I want to keep things consistent, and 4K, honestly, for me, I don't care. I prefer for performance. So I've turned this on and I've kept the 50 and 24 Hz. And now let's talk about my controller settings. So I've got an Elite Series 2 controller. And for my other settings, you see my paddles are the same, but everything else is default. And for my primary setting, this is what I use in BDO. You can see I've also changed some extra items. I have changed my D-pads and my thumbsticks. So I'll get more into that once we get into the edit. So as you can see here, I've put my left thumbstick click and I've changed it to down on the D-pad, and I've changed my right thumbstick click to right on the D-pad, and then I've rearranged right on the D-pad to then be the right thumbstick click, and my down on the D-pad to be the left thumbstick click. So I have not lost any buttons doing this, but I can now use some better skills on my left and right thumbsticks that are more relevant for PvP, and I can react with faster and use the right and down on my D-pad to be sheathing my weapon and auto-pathing, stuff like that. It's not as important. This does help you in PvP once you get used to it. It is very jarring when you do this for the first time. It's not going to feel right. It's going to feel weird. But stick with it once your muscle memory kicks in. But it also just reduces the amount of times and the time that you remove your left or your right thumb away from the sticks. That could lead to you dying because you don't have full control of your character. Now, another thing that I've done both for my right stick and my left stick is I've changed the sensitivity curve. So for the sensitivity curve, it's on instant. And I've put the curve adjustment to maximum, and I've changed the calculations to access independent from radial. Now, I'm not going to explain exactly what this means because it's kind of complicated. I watched a few videos on YouTube. If you just go on YouTube and you type in Xbox Elite sensitivity curve, there'll be some videos coming up that explain what these do. And just to quickly tell you guys, the overall effect is the inputs on my right thumbstick are going to be taken more quickly and are going to be emphasized. And what that means is without moving my right stick a lot, it's going to think that it's reached its maximum potential. So if you're looking at your screen right now, the blue line is where my thumbstick has adjusted to think it is, and the white line is where my thumbstick actually is. So what that means is you can make a lot less micro adjustments doing this. It's more difficult to make up micro adjustments, but what it's going to do is going to accelerate you getting to maximum camera speed when you go right and left a lot quicker. But it accelerates you reaching your maximum speed. It doesn't increase your maximum speed. And the thing with BDO, and the reason I'm using this for BDO specifically, is because in the game there is a built-in system where it's got camera acceleration that we cannot turn off. So it is a two-step system where after it first understands that your controller is at maximum torque, so it's as far as away it can be from center, it starts to accelerate your camera. And it will start accelerating, so you're at maximum speed, let's say 10, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm just pulling some numbers out my ass. They say for like 0.1 seconds is going to be 10% faster than 100% speed. At 0.2 seconds is going to be 20, 30, 40, and it caps at 200%, right? So every second that you're holding right on your thumbstick, your camera speed is accelerating by a certain percentage until that also hits its maximum, because there is a maximum speed, that overall speed that you can rotate your camera. So what I'm doing is I'm reducing the step. I'm reducing how long it takes to reach step 1's maximum to reduce the amount of time it takes to reach step 2's maximum movement speed of the camera. And that way I can move my camera more quickly. I could definitely feel it's very hard to explain how this translates into game. You will understand it if you decide to do this for yourselves. But micro adjustments, like I said, are a lot more difficult because you have a lot less room to maneuver in to make those slight adjustments. And it is really hard to get muscle memory for accelerated camera speeds. It's a lot easier to understand your muscle memory when it's a fixed line. So once you hit maximum, that is your maximum. It's not going to go any faster. It's a lot easier to get muscle memory for that than it is to get the muscle memory for reaching a maximum camera stick acceleration. The acceleration throws you off a lot. I'm still getting used to it, but what it allows me to do in game is really maximize my use of forward guards to try and point my forward guard in the right direction to block enemy attacks. But the disadvantage, the suffering I'm getting is it's harder to place accurate shurikens, accurate boss slaughters, and accurate block jumps because the micro adjustments is just more difficult to make. But I am getting better at it over time. This is something that I've been messing around with for just over a week now. And finally, for my triggers on the Elite 2, there's 3 settings. I've got mine, you can't see it on your screen here, but I've got mine on the shortest setting. So what I mean by that is the trigger stop is at minimum. So I barely have to touch the trigger for it to fully register, and that's just how I like playing games. That's both for my left and my right trigger. Guys, I know it's been a longer video. Thank you very much for sticking with me if you've stuck with me. I hope some of these settings have helped you out. If you have any other questions, let me know, and I look forward to seeing you in my future content.